Today I'm going to talk about 5 things that you should know before buying the new EcoDiesel Jeep Wrangler. My name's Casey and this is my 2020 Jeep Wrangler with the 3-liter EcoDiesel motor that just came out. So I've owned the Jeep for about 12 days now, and there are several things that I've noticed that I wanted to talk about that I think anybody should know before buying one. As well, I'm kind of answering some of the questions that you guys have been leaving me down in the comments that I see reoccurring over and over. Now there's lots of Jeep mods and off-road content on this channel. If you're not already subscribed, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of my videos. Over 80% of the people that watch the videos on this channel aren't subscribed. So if you want to see more, hit that button. So the first question is, does the Jeep have DEF or diesel exhaust fluid? And yes, it does, guys. The EcoDiesel motor does require DEF fluid. It's right here in the back where you would put the diesel fluid, right here in the back where you would put the diesel fuel. And Jeep has said that this will last around 10,000 miles before having to refill it, which, the sun's right behind me, which lines up to about the same time you would need to change your oil. And if you're wondering just how much diesel exhaust fluid is left in there, they do include a gauge in your dash that tells you just how much DEF fluid is remaining, or how much percentage you have remaining. So you will have to be adding DEF fluid to this about every 10,000 miles or so, which kind of takes me to my next point. There are a lot of things emissions related underneath the new EcoDiesel Wrangler. The first one that you notice right off the bat is around the back here, and this is actually the DEF tank. Now this has a skid plate on it to protect it from some impacts. I don't know how well that's going to last long term. I am looking for something a little stronger, but I know on JKs where the muffler sits along the back here, they do tend to get damaged a lot. Some other things that we have underneath, well, right here, I believe it is a water fuel separator, which has a drain right through here. It also has a skid plate, but it is hanging down below the frame rail. So whether you're adding aftermarket skid plates or sliders, it's gonna have to accommodate for that, and it is a little bit lower. If you're wondering, well, what does the underneath of this thing look like? Well, here you go. So it looks completely different than the gasoline motor options. Here's the front of the Jeep. The exhaust system and all of the emissions control systems run along the passenger side, and the fuel tank is actually over on the driver's side on the EcoDiesel. So along here, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what all this is, but I believe this is the EGR system, and there's a diesel particulate filter in here. But long and short of it is, this is very exposed. This canister here, right here is, you know, there's no skid plate on that whatsoever. It's hanging lower than the transmission pan, lower than the oil pan. And there's a cross member here and a cross member here. Now they have put a skid plate over top of this thing, which I think is the diesel particulate filter. I don't know. I gotta double check exactly what the proper names for all these are. But there's a light skid plate here, but you know, there's definitely lots of room for sticks and rocks to kick up and hit that stuff. And on my JK, where I have the muffler right here, it has been smashed several times. It's got huge dents in it. So I'm looking for either a manufacturer to come out with a skid plate for this right away, or get something fabbed up, because I don't want to damage this. And I know some of you are gonna say, well, just delete it, maybe down the road, but I wanna see what others' experiences are with that as well. Well, that's not a problem for me here in Canada to delete it, because I don't have any emissions controls requirements. There's a huge crackdown in the United States on deleting this stuff. So if you're not going to remove it, you're going to want to skid plate it. There's wires and valves and heat shields, and there's wires up here on the top of this thing. And yeah, so there's just a lot more hanging down lower on the EcoDiesel. Let's have a look at the diesel motor. We're going to pop this open. So here we have it. I haven't given you guys a really good look at the diesel motor yet, but I'm sure right off the bat you can notice several things that are different than the gas motor. The first one is, look at where the air box is. So this is where the air intake is. It is on the driver's side. So if you're looking at cold air intakes or snorkels, any of the ones that are designed to go over here on this side are going to have to be redesigned to go over on the driver's side. So don't go buying one of the 2-liter turbo or 3.6 liters and expecting it to fit. The other thing that I was kind of thinking about is when I'm off-roading, if I'm going through a really deep puddle, on my gas JK, I tend to put this side in the deeper side of the puddle, the driver's side, because, well, if it's too deep, it's going to sink down, and at least leave the airbox sitting up above the water. If I get tilted or I'm going through a very large puddle, I'll usually put this side up on the high side, and whatever happens over here happens. So something to keep mindful, to keep watch for is if you're going through deep puddles or deep water crossings and you know one side is lower or you've got a ridge on one side, you want to keep your driver's side up now. Just show you guys a few other things, like how tight this motor is. It occupies a lot of space. There's not a lot of room in front of it. Something else I noticed, they have the washer fluid reservoir, which goes down behind, and it actually sits behind the fender well, or the fender liner back here. The washer reservoir is back here. So I have people that were adding the brackets to add your ARB twin pumps behind here. There's a huge washer fluid reservoir. The other thing was, I mentioned in a previous video, just where this secondary battery sits on this side. Now, I don't know if the actual clearance from the shock tower to the battery tray that holds that second battery is less on the diesel versus gasoline motors with the engine start stop. But when talking to TerraFlex, only the diesel motors, the diesel motor Wranglers were the ones having the problems with those reservoirs on the Falcon shock. So I'm kind of wondering if that battery tray is a little bit closer to the shock tower on the diesels, even though some of the gas motor JLs do have the engine start stop system with that battery right there. I don't see anybody talking about that being a problem with those Falcon shocks with the reservoir. So that might be a little bit different. But the other thing I was thinking about is, well, the battery location on this and just how much room there isn't actually around this. And I know that a popular modification for off-roaders and overlanders is adding dual batteries. And I'm not sure if there is going to be a kit that comes available and how you would actually arrange that. You can see the battery is almost butting right up against the side of the motor here, and there's only an inch or so on this other side. So I think there's a dual battery kit. It'll have to be very creative, or smaller batteries, or have the second battery maybe somewhere else in the cab or in the trunk. So if you're thinking about the diesel for overlanding long distance because it's got better fuel mileage or better range, and you're considering dual batteries, keep an eye out for what kits become available, because that's super tight the way this is arranged right now. So the other thing that's cool about the diesels is the axles. Now, on Rubicons, you always get a Dana 44 axle, both on the front and the rear in the JLs. However, with the EcoDiesel, you get a Dana 44 in the front. It doesn't matter whether or not you bought a Rubicon or a Sport or a Sahara, they all have Dana 44s up front. Probably they want the added strength to accommodate the next point that I'm going to get to, and that's weight. Now, the Rubicon is still the only one that has both front and rear lockers, but all editions, all Sport, Saharas, and Rubicons have 373 gears. The Rubicons do not have 410 gears. They have the same gearing as all the other models, but all the models do have Dana 44 front differentials, and I think every JL has a Dana 44 rear differential. All right, so this kind of leads me to my next point, and that is that the diesels are heavier. Depending on the trim and what options you have, they're generally 400 to 500 pounds heavier than the gas motors would be. Now, on the door frame, we have showing that it is rated with a GVRW of 6,100 pounds. Now, I haven't had a chance to put this on a scale yet, but TFL now did put theirs on a scale, and it was I think 5,080 pounds. So there was over 1,000 pounds, even though the payload capacity, which I think is on here somewhere, the payload capacity is supposed to be 850 pounds. So even though that the payload capacity, that's both passengers and cargo, is 850 pounds, there seems to be a 1,000-pound difference between what the GVRW is and what the EcoDiesel Wrangler actually weighs. So I'm a little bit, you know, not sure what that is all about. But lots of people have said, well, are you worried about how much capacity, cargo capacity, and weight that you can carry? And yeah, I kind of am. I don't load it up with 4 full-size adults, rarely ever, but I will be adding more weight with larger tires and some body armor and a lift kit and things like that. So there will be an increase in weight. I am going to be sensitive to the weight on this and going to be trying to use as much aluminum as I can. The JK weighs like 5,800 pounds without me in it, so you know, we'll probably still be under that, but if I had 3 people in, we'd probably be over that weight. So with that additional weight, that also means some other things. You want to be mindful of any lift kit or modifications that you're doing, that they are in fact built for the EcoDiesel. I haven't checked the actual factory spring rates, but if you look at the Mopar aftermarket springs for lifting this, they actually do use a different part number for the EcoDiesel, which has what's assumed to be a different spring rate to deal with the additional overall weight of the vehicle. Now, some manufacturers are coming out with different spring rates for their lift kits for the 3-liter diesels, and some vendors I've seen respond and say no, the extra weight is within their tolerance and their design, because they're designed for carrying around extra cargo and adding armor and winches and heavier bumpers and things like that. So double check with whatever manufacturer you may be going with before you purchase your lift that it is okay to use on the 3-liter EcoDiesel. And if you're looking at some big upgrades like a long arm, well, the long arms that I've seen prototyped and designed so far and posted on some people's Instagrams and Facebooks are being designed completely for the 3-liter diesel, because there's so much change underneath with where the exhaust sits and the fuel tank sits and where you would actually put those control arms underneath the vehicle. So in summary, I wanted to cover those 5 points of things that I've noticed so far, answer some of your guys' questions, and make sure that you're informed before you go out and order a new EcoDiesel, or if you're looking at aftermarket parts, realizing that not all of the parts that manufacturers have released for JLs will in fact be compatible with the EcoDiesel motor. If you're wanting to see more of these videos, I do upload very frequently, so smash that subscribe button. I'd love to have you join us here on the channel. I'll see you guys soon in the next video.